Good evening. Good evening. I want to thank the ladies and gentlemen to my right and my left. There is not a better group of honest and ethical, hardworking and zealous lawyers, and I especially wish to thank Mark and Tenny for allowing me and everyone else to come together. On behalf of my family, myself, I wish to thank you all for being here and writing truthfully about a man wrongly charged with most of the crimes, and that we all must remember that allegations are nothing. And I'd like to thank Sean for letting me be here. Thank you all. God bless you.
What did your client want to say when he raised his hand?
Thankfully, in our country, we have a right to a jury trial. And thankfully, Mr. Combs took that right. He actually battled for his freedom, for his innocence. He did it. And a lot of times, you know, people are too afraid to do it. And he did it, and we're so happy that he did. We're proud of him. We are completely honored that he put his faith and his trust in us to fight for him. Today is a major win to show what the system can do. We appreciate and we're so thankful to the jury. Thank you to the court. Thank you, New York. It's been a pleasure being here and fighting in your district. Thank you so much. And listen, we appreciate the media. We do. There was a lot of reporting on the accusations. There was a lot of reporting on the indictment. Please report just as vigorously on the acquittal of these counts, please, because that's also the right thing to do. Thank you.
How about this? A story we've been following for months now, and finally kind of understanding what the jury went through. Now to the fallout after that split verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. This morning, we're getting a look inside of that deliberation room.
One juror is now speaking out anonymously, saying that the panel's decision had nothing to do with Combs and his celebrity status. ABC's Rhiannon Alley has the story.
This morning, a juror from the Sean Diddy Combs trial requesting to remain anonymous, slamming the notion that the music mogul's celebrity profile drove their decision. In a statement to ABC News saying, "I found that statement highly insulting and belittling to the jury and the deliberation process," adding, "Our decision was based solely on the evidence presented and how the law is stated. We would have treated any defendant in the same manner regardless of who they are." The jury of 8 men and 4 women acquitted the rap titan of the most severe charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, but convicted him on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution as it relates to ex-girlfriends Cassie Ventura and the woman who testified under the pseudonym Jane. An alternate juror telling CNN, though he wasn't part of the deliberations, he agrees with the verdict.
I took a copious amount of notes. I think reading all my notes and looking back at the evidence, I probably would have reached the same conclusion as the other jurors.
Rhiannon Alley, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Saw some very graphic images, videos. You heard very sexual and graphic details. What was that like, hearing that? And how did it impact how you viewed the case?
No, they were very graphic, and but I think overall, you know, we were looking at it from like one side, and it was definitely riveting and eye-opening.
What did you see on the videos? You know, the press wasn't able to see it in real time.
Yeah. No, I mean, they were showing some of the, well, I mean, there was both the freak-offs and hotel nights, as they were called, from both of them. But it was...
what did they show in those videos?
They showed, well, again, you know, the defense and the prosecution showed different clips, so they were very selective. Like the prosecution was showing more, you know, just Cassie just sitting around.
The defense showed that?
The defense showed that, yeah.
Just her sitting around not engaging in sexual activity?
Yes.
The prosecution, when you had to have your headphones on and otherwise, what were you seeing then?
There was sexual activity, but I mean, it wasn't really.
Was it forced?
No, it didn't. It didn't seem forced. It was actually like pretty tame.
Really?
Yeah.
Did she?
It was just a lot of rubbing oil and stuff on there. It wasn't anything too graphic. I would say.
Let me ask you. This jury that deliberated did not find sex trafficking when it came to Cassie Ventura. They also didn't find it when it came to Jane. And I want to ask you about Jane in a moment. But did it surprise you when it came to Cassie Ventura that they did not convict on sex trafficking?
No, I don't. I think it was a difficult thing to prove, and I think there was always some doubt, whether, because I think what the judge says, it has to be forced. And I think the defense did show some messages where it didn't seem that it was forced.
Oh, her text messages when she talked about it.
Yeah.
That was really important to you to consider.
I think that was one aspect. Yes.
Did that make you feel that it was consensual?
It did seem like it. Yeah.
Talk to me about Jane.
Even in the videos and everything seemed very consensual.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to read through the charges that we have on Diddy. So count 2, sex trafficking of Cassie Ventura, not guilty. Count 3, the Mann Act, transportation on Cassie Ventura, guilty. Count 4, sex trafficking of Jane, not guilty. And count 5, Mann Act, transportation of Jane, guilty.
So did the prosecution prove its case? No. Yes, he was found guilty on the Mann Act, 2 counts. But again, this is an antiquated law. Let me just explain the Mann Act. That if Diddy had taken somebody from the San Fernando Valley, a sex worker, and then brought them over the hill to a hotel in Beverly Hills and paid them, well, that would be solicitation of prostitution. Guess what? It wouldn't even be a felony case. The DA wouldn't take a case like that. It'd be a misdemeanor case that the city attorney might file. Generally, they don't. But if they do, it's 6 months, maximum a year in county jail, which they never give. And yet, we are now looking at a prosecution that got 2 convictions of putting a sex worker on an airplane and flying him to where he was. That's what this case ended up to be. A monumental loss for prosecutors.
Let's be very real. We're not going to ignore the racist undertones of this. This had definite racist undertones. Let's be very, very real, because they used that racist ass Mann Act. That Mann Act has always been a racist apparatus to target black men. We got to be very real about that. That Mann Act, which is called the White Slave Trafficking Act, they passed that in 1910. It's called the White Slave Trafficking Act. And
although scant evidence supported the existence of white slavery, Congress passed the White Slave Traffic Act on June 25, 1910. This law, also known as the Mann Act, forbade any person from transporting women or girls across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, debauchery, or any other immoral purpose.
One of the interesting things of the Mann Act is it didn't depend upon actual sex happening. It was very almost Orwellian in the way it was construed by the courts. The vital elements of the crime were transportation across a state line.
The Mann Act soon became a tool for more personal vendettas. Fathers turned in the boyfriends of wanton daughters. Wives reported philandering husbands. And some prosecutors exploited the law as a weapon against romances that crossed the color line. Jack Johnson was an easy target for the Mann Act. In 1908, he became the first black man to break through boxing's color barrier and reigned as heavyweight champion of the world.
Perhaps he was the Muhammad Ali of his day. He was very flamboyant. He was pretty much in-your-face kind of person. A black man being champion of the world didn't fit into a lot of people's idea about who that should be.
Johnson further inflamed his critics by openly keeping company with white women and eventually marrying 2 of them.
Sex and race have always been linked in American culture and American society ever since the days of slavery. Black males were looked at as inherently predatory. You know, white men essentially projected all of their own anxieties onto black men and looked at them as sexual, beasts.
In the fall of 1912, federal authorities arrested and convicted Johnson for transporting one of his lady friends from Pittsburgh to Chicago. Few doubted that race was the real motivation.
The federal prosecutor, immediately after the conviction, expressed before the press the hope that this would be an example about the evils of permitting Negroes and whites to marry. It had nothing to do with the crime at all. It was an amazingly candid expression of why he'd been targeted.
Jack Johnson ultimately served 1 year in prison as punishment for his so-called crime. For the next 2 decades, Mann Act convictions continued to rise. But the manner in which men and women lived and loved in America was already changing.
Talk about the Jack Johnson Act, the Mann Act, which is racially wrong. It's known as the White Slavery Act rule, which was basically used against black men and interracial relationships as taking a woman across state lines for certain personal endeavors. And it's still been law of the land. Now, even though former President Donald Trump pardoned Jack Johnson in 2018 and a signature, that the law has still been used. Why is that? And you might wonder how it's still consequently was used against Chuck Berry when he had his convictions of his situations, R. Kelly, and now associated with Diddy, 1910.
Diddy was wrong for putting his hands on Cassie. He said that. They owned up to the domestic violence when Ignafalo did his final closing arguments. Ignafalo basically owned it. Said, Your Honor, if we were here, or told to the jury, if we were here for domestic violence, right, then Sean P. Diddy Combs would plead guilty. We get that. This is not about anybody that was sexually abused. This is not about that. This is about people who were in a relationship who chose to consensually be involved. This is what the jury heard, ladies and gentlemen. This is not about what somebody can formulate to tell you about something, about how they feel. This is not about anybody's feelings. It never was. Now, you can express your feelings, but I'll say it once again, like I said in the beginning. You have a right to your feelings, but your feelings don't make you right. You understand what I'm saying? Like I said, Diddy owned up to what he did. Remember, when the case came up about Jay-Z, Diddy, and all of those things, I told y'all in the beginning. I told you in the beginning, that the people in the chat who know and understand when I said, look, man, when they dropped that case, when Tony Busby was forced to drop that case against Diddy and Jay-Z, my eyes were open. I was like, oh, wow. Like I said, I wouldn't, and I would in some ways call it a malicious prosecution, if you will. Jack Johnson, the situation in dealing with Jack Johnson as far as the Mann Act when he was dating a white woman, right? It wasn't the Mann Act that Jack Johnson was convicted of. He was convicted of dating a white woman. And so when in the Mann Act situation, there is no case law. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. And I think it was kind of crazy that the judge would ask the prosecution, is there any precedent or jurisprudence as to why Diddy shouldn't be let out on bail in the federal court? Any kind of precedent in the federal court? There is none, ladies and gentlemen. The person that was charged with the Mann Act was Jack Johnson, the boxer, right? Jack Johnson was given bail, but Jack Johnson skipped on his bail, right? And went to live overseas for a while, came back. Jack Johnson was recently, in the last couple of years, given a pardon, right? given a pardon based on the fact of the Mann Act.
I just think it's interesting, and we discussed this off the air, but let's remember the feds added the 2 charges he was convicted on very late in the game.
Was that the superseding indictment, the superseding indictment 3?
They literally added
Right.
these 2 charges like 2 months before the trial, something like that. And his team, was like, no, the Mann Act is racist. This should be tossed out. And they filed, I think, multiple motions to get these charges removed. And it didn't work. And clearly this was the Fed strategy. They knew deep down that Damian Williams stuck them with this case, wasn't as strong as they wanted it to be. They knew they'd probably get, think about it. They had all of the evidence, right? From Cassie, from Jane at that point. They knew that was a slam dunk because it was tangible.
When I looked at that, I said, Cassie's a victim of some sort. I don't know victim of what. Obviously, the conversation was victim of domestic abuse.
I think not. Sean agrees with that. She is a victim of domestic violence. 100%. Like she is. Yeah.
Assault.
Exactly.
Not,
that's
higher than domestic violence.
Yes.
Assault.
There you go.
She got assaulted.
Aggravated assault. You
she
can
got
say
assaulted.
that. Yeah. Like I feel like a lot of people are disappointed in the verdict that are abuse survivors, and I feel for them. I do. Sex trafficking survivors. However, he was not on trial for being a scumbag that beats women, right? That was not what this trial was.
So is Diddy gonna do any time? Probably not, or so minimal. Under the federal sentencing rules, there are sentencing guidelines, and based upon the charge that has been found guilty, the person found guilty of, prior record, facts of the case, violence, aggravating factors, mitigating factors, blah, 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 blah. All of these, how do I say this? All of these factors come into play and are part of the consideration. He's looking at mainly, it's like 10 years maximum, I think, per count. Or the prosecution is just going for overkill because they've been hurt and they've been embarrassed. They're going to be asking for like 20 years. He could do time served. He was doing like 10 months. If somebody pled guilty, somebody walked into court right now and pled guilty to Mann Act, it's also the white slavery statute. I don't know what a first timer would ever get. By the way, if you weren't P. Diddy, you wouldn't be in federal court. They wouldn't charge him with any of this stuff. See, that's why people say, well, it's fixed because he's got money. No, because of the money, that's why they charged him. And who will never know whom he pissed off, what were the factors behind this, why did he incur the wrath of all these people? I have no idea. None. I have no idea. And we can play this game, but he never gave up anybody, never gave up Jay-Z or Fiddy or whoever the hell these people are. Nothing. Kept his mouth shut, did his time, so to speak, went from this lavish lifestyle to squatting over a stainless steel turlet, and everybody was going crazy. Look at him, he's having his big chicken for Thanksgiving or turkey. Oh, out there making fun, talking about oil and Astroloop, and that video of Cassie. I kept saying, you keep showing that, you're going to habituate this. You don't understand. What does this have to do with racketeering? Nothing.
Man, see, I've said this from the very beginning. If someone is guilty of something, make them guilty of that something. You don't make them guilty of everything because you're so desperate. Most of you people, you don't even care about women being beat. You don't care about people taking advantage of. No, you want to see famous black men go down in shambles. That's what it is. You don't actually care. R. Kelly's trial, you don't care about children. You don't care about women. No, you are entertained by watching a famous, successful black person get in trouble. You don't actually care about these topics because have you investigated anyone in your neighborhood who's beating women? Who's doing things to children? Who's trafficking things? No, you don't actually care. This is why I don't take people on the internet seriously. You're a bunch of fakes and a bunch of frauds. This is the world you're living in. Gene Deal. Now, I was laughing and things like that, but Gene Deal, I like Gene Deal. I believe him. He's a truth teller. But there were times where he did go overboard with certain things. It's amazing how desperate this system was to put him away, that these people around him, Cassie admitted she enjoyed these freak offs, and she even orchestrated some of them. She even would contact Puffy and say, "You want to do one of them tonight?" But they made it seem like he was doing no, she orchestrated a lot of them. She invited a lot of them. She was paying people out of her pocket to take part in them. His drug mule. These people, if he committed these crimes, that means they committed them too. But they will give them immunity just to put them on the stand to put him away. This is the desperation. Oh my God. This is the world you're living in. This is the world you're living in.
It would be ridiculous if the judge was to give him any type of crazy time based off of the prosecution. The prosecution hurt themselves. They hurt themselves with this ridiculous. They overcharged them. They sensationalized this. They turned this into a media frenzy, right? They allowed social media, and social media too. All these weirdos on social media spreading lies and propaganda. All the fake Diddy, surviving Diddy documentaries. Oh, Diddy was with T.D. Jakes. Y'all slandered T.D. Jakes' name. This is a man of God. All these fake frauds running around here talking about how religious they is and morals and all this stuff. But T.D. Jakes, this is a man of God. Y'all done ruined this man's name. Y'all done ruined this man's name. Got people out here quit. This man dedicated his whole life to helping people, helping his community. People out here calling him a power bottom. This man was so stressed out that man had a heart attack. But this is what the community do for you. All for hits, all for clicks, so y'all can have something to talk about on the internet. Then ruin this man's reputation. That the feds got tapes of Diddy smashing T.D. Jakes at the freak offs. Yeah, it's a tape where T.D. Jakes was just bathing in baby oil, right? Then yeah, exactly, bro. What happened to the baby oil being laced? What happened to all that mess? The cap. What happened to all of the cap? The baby oil being laced. You know what I'm saying? What happened to all that stuff? It's ridiculous. So, all these lies y'all told every day, and I had to sit back and take it. I knew this day was gonna come though. I said it's all good because, look, the cream always rises to the top, man. You know what I'm saying? The frauds, they're gonna eat for a little while. They're gonna talk all this stuff. They're gonna make up lies about Diddy, messing with kids and all this type of stuff. Fake tapes that the AI have. All they told y'all, none of it came out in trial.
You know, I don't like saying I told you so, but I'll make an exception. I told you so. I said it would be an acquittal. Well, I stand a little corrected. There was this piddly Mann Act nonsense, this transporting prostitutes across state lines. So Cassie and that Jane Doe and a couple of male performers or whatever. Okay, if that's the best you can do, I guess. By the way, folks, Cassie, you're a prostitute. How do you like that? Think about that. You're, as we say in the streets, a hoe. Because that's what this thing is. But maybe, who knows, that may, in this particular weird way of thinking, that may mean something. But let's go through this. First and foremost, a proviso, and this is critical. Number one, and I say this, nobody is talking about, or I'm not, celebrating him. I don't like him. I don't know why I even have to say this, but sometimes you have to, because in today's simplistic world, I don't like him. I don't care for him. I don't, I couldn't tell you a song that he ever did. If he does a song, I don't even know what he's done. I don't know anything about him. I don't. But so what? That's not the issue. The issue is that he was charged with, number one, racketeering. Do you know what it means? They didn't find at least 2 predicate acts. Two predicate acts they didn't find. Not, arson or sexual battery or anything along. Nothing. Not 2. Racketeering is the easiest thing in the world. 2 predicate acts, 2 acts of whatever, and some existence of an enterprise. They said, nope. That's the part that killed me. When I heard that, that was it. It's like, uh-oh. Now, the other one says, remember yesterday they said, we have a verdict. And I was on WABC this morning, and I talked to my colleague, Noam Layton, and he said, well, we have a verdict. I said, don't forget, not guilty is a verdict, too. People were saying, they've reached a verdict. They think a guilty is the only verdict. Not guilty is a verdict.
Yeah, baby! When last year I spent more money on spilled liquor in bars from one side of this world to the other than you made